Hello, and welcome to another episode of Radio Royale.
I'm Sip.
And I'm Bangs.
And we're here today with the man, the myth, the legendary Stefu.
Hi all.
Stefu, who are you? Have we seen each other before?
Yeah, I mean, we work in the same team.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
You're that guy that sits next to me. Oh,
yeah.
Yeah, I sit next
You're
to
like
Bang.
3
Yeah.
desks over. Oh, yeah, I never looked
I thought
that
you
way.
looked familiar.
Yeah. So, who are you again?
Yeah, so I'm Stefu. I work as a game designer in the Royale team.
Right, and what does that mean?
So I actually mostly work on the balancing and the system design and the game economy. But really, like, we're all game designers in the team. That's how we roll. We all discuss very openly all the design questions.
Stefu, so I know you had some reservations coming on the show because this is a very touchy topic for the community.
Yeah, I mean, this is a tricky topic for me. It's of course very close to my heart. This is what I work on. I do take it really seriously.
Yeah, I know.
The balancing.
You seem serious. Yeah.
Uptight almost.
Yeah, uptight. Yeah. And I just want to let you guys know who's listening. He's not that way. He's a pretty fun guy sometimes.
Definitely.
Definitely.
Walks around the office like he's a royal giant.
Yeah.
I'm a Finn. I'm mostly naked, like in a song.
Playing Clash Royale.
Playing Clash Royale.
That's gonna get a burn somewhere.
Oh my god.
So we've got loads of questions on the forum and from Reddit for questions to ask you, Stefu. But I think before we get into that, it would be awesome if you could give us a short overview of your GDC talk.
Yeah, the highlight reel, as it were.
It's a 60-minute talk, and even that had to have a lot of content cut from it because there's just so much to talk about when discussing the metagame and balancing of Clash Royale. But if you could just sort of summarize that content in 3 minutes.
Oh wow.
Go.
Go.
Oh my. Okay. Yeah. So the title was "Quest for the Healthy Metagame: Balancing Cards in Clash Royale." So let's first say what is a metagame. So I defined it like this: the cards, combinations, and strategies that the community at large have found most effective.
So what kind of control do we have over the meta?
Balancing is the only tool we have to try and affect that, but it's really the community and the players that create the metagame. What they choose, what they play, that's what creates it.
Sometimes it's not even balance changes that cause changes in the meta, is it? Sometimes you can see that from like the Shanghai tournament was a good example.
Yeah, that's true. Like we've seen, for example, in the Shanghai tournament last summer, the top 8 on stage, they actually almost all of them had a giant poison deck, and that really started the infamous giant poison meta.
So what's an example of a healthy metagame?
Yeah, so healthy metagame, which is basically the goal. I think that's where the game just overall feels fun. There's a variety of different strategies. There's many different deck archetypes that are popular.
I guess variety just keeps it fresh. It's like if you're just facing the same deck every time, it can be.
Yeah, I think that's that's the main thing, like where you really see it. When it's the same thing you see all the time, that's the most boring thing, really.
Variety is the spice of life.
Yeah. So that perhaps how do we choose what to affect when we're thinking about balance changes?
I think it breaks down to 3 things. We listen to the players. And we look at data, we look at the metrics, but then at the end of the day, it's really about intuition and trying to figure out what works, what doesn't, what should be changed, what are the effects and ramifications of different changes.
What's the key metrics you look at when you're sort of trying to judge the health of the metagame?
So for metrics, we mostly use use rates and win rates, and we check that from different arenas. We check from top players. We check from top tournament players.
Right. So these use rates, do we want every card to have the same exact use rate?
Yeah, that's a good question. Actually, a good point, because we have right now 71 cards in the game after the Bandit has been released, and that means maybe I should do the math for this, but it means something like 11 billion possible deck combinations in the game, and it's not really realistic that everything would be used perfectly evenly. I mean, obviously a very versatile card like the Zap or the Log will have a higher use rate just because it just fits almost any deck.
The one thing I got from your talk was that cards like Expo, which is sort of, you said a spicy card, should have a sort of lower use rate. Can you explain that a little further?
Yeah, so the idea there is that there are cards like the Expo that we basically consciously wanted to not have an insanely high use rate, but we still want it to be a viable card and a viable option. So the Expo is actually quite powerful if used correctly, but it requires quite a lot of skill actually to use well. A good way to see if a spicy card is in the right place is that it has a low use rate, but it has a pretty high win rate. Then it means that not that many are using it, but those who specialize in it and those who have high skill with it, they can find success with it.
If you want to find out more information about Stefu's talk, be sure to go check that out. It may be a little more technical, so feel free to view it if you like. If not, we're moving on to questions.
Yes, my favorite time.
Question time. Did we receive a lot of questions?
We received all of the questions.
5,000 questions.
5,000 questions.
Yeah.
So for this question, I'm going to just summarize because I think about 4,000 of our 5,000 questions have been on this subject. There's two cards that are perhaps the most controversial in our game.
Yes.
Certainly controversial in the community. Mm-hmm. Can you guess what they are?
Yeah, my guess is the Knight and the Valkyrie.
I don't know. Stefu, do you know?
I'm trying to come up with something funny, but it's the Royal Giant and Elite Barbarians, right?
So why are they so controversial? What is it about the Royal Giant and Elite Barbarians that people get so enraged about or passionate, perhaps?
They are a really tricky pair of cards. So first of all, they are quite strong offense cards, and we are in general quite reluctant to nerf offense options because we want the game to have several different, nice, cool offense options. They put the skill test to the defender. They are fairly easy to use as an attacker, but the defender has to be good at defending them.
Yeah, and certainly for Elite Barbs, there's this game that's sort of developed where it's like someone puts Elite Barbs down and then someone else puts skeletons, and then you kind of predict that they're going to put skeletons so you get your log, and it's like this kind of back and forth. The kind of
counterplay you're explaining is actually, I think, quite interesting, but for Elite Barbarians it's a bit tricky when, if you defend very well, you get no damage at all, but if you do a small mistake, then your tower is down.
Yeah, and that probably perhaps leads to the frustration.
But then another thing is that they are actually highly used only at a certain trophy range, roughly 3,500 to 5,000. But it's a fact that at that level, they are used quite a lot to the point that it's actually quite unhealthy for the game.
Yeah, and I guess we kind of measure the healthiness by the use rate specifically.
If you face something all the time, then that's what I would call an unhealthy metagame. You want variation, you want different strategies to be prominent. But both the Royal Giant and the Elite Barbarians are used way below average in the top 100 and also in top challenge play. So this makes it a really tricky topic. Should they be nerfed or not?
It perhaps highlights as well the reliance on the success of these cards being due to over-leveling, perhaps. Because if you're at a level cap where you're at in a challenge, or if you're in the top 100 on the ladder, it doesn't appear to be a problem.
Yeah, it's easier to upgrade these cards because they're commons. So that makes them more appealing for many players to focus on them because it's easier to get them to the maximum level. It becomes a tricky problem. So is the problem really with the game economy or is it with the cards themselves? And we were exploring things also with the economy. We were thinking, for example, about changing the rarities of these two cards, but that becomes quite complex. So what if we would change them to rares? What would be the conversion? If we change a max level card to a max level card, nothing really changes. And if we would make the conversion relative, we would actually downgrade the Royal Giants and Elite Barbarians, and that would be quite nasty against those players who have actually upgraded them.
And I guess a solution that becomes fair for our players doesn't also fix the problem because they're already over-leveled, and it actually perhaps means that new players or players that are rising the ladder don't have this opportunity like other players do.
Another thing that we've explored is capping cards at king level. the more we were exploring that and thinking about it, the messier it started to feel. So the idea would be that you can't use cards that are higher level than your king. It might have made sense if that would have been done from the beginning of the game, but to this established live game, that's a pretty tricky one to do.
I feel that maybe that sort of change might mean that players get stuck, because at the moment you can progress because of your skill, or you can progress because of your card levels, and it's actually a combination of those two things. But if we were to cap the levels of cards, you can no longer progress with those cards in the game, so you have to rely on your skill to push you up to the next arena.
Yeah, many players have relied on these cards now to get their trophy levels high. So now if we would suddenly cut that away from them, they would actually plummet in the trophy levels because they wouldn't have any alternatives to use. So it's a lot bigger thing to do than just simply nerfing the cards.
I guess the important thing here is perhaps this is a lesson that we've learned for future card releases about when we release a card and it's a common card, what's the danger with that card with over-leveling?
Yeah, we definitely need to be more aware of this than we before. But this wasn't really an issue early on in the game. Now that the game is 1 year old, it has become like an issue because there are more and more players who are actually at that state. So what we're currently looking at is simply doing some direct nerfs.
And what are those nerfs?
All right, so for Royal Giant, we've decided to increase the deploy time from 1 second to 2 seconds.
Why did we go with that as a solution? What things did we try?
So we tried different things. We tried damage, we tried reducing the tile range as well, the hit points, but they all felt a bit wrong. And there's also the fact that Royal Giant isn't that good in challenges and in top play when you have equal level card. And also the thing that makes Royal Giant nasty to play against is when he's placed at the bridge and he's almost immediately shooting at your tower, or the situation where one tower is down and you place it in that little pocket there and he starts immediately shooting at your tower. So by increasing the deploy time, the defender gets a bit more time to react to the Royal Giant. But this might actually even slightly buff the playstyle where you place the Royal Giant behind your tower to start.
That's cool. It feels like there might be more skill in making it useful. So if you're placing it behind, like from the back, then it's not so much about the Royal Giant, it's about the support troops you can then place with that push versus just placing them at the bridge and getting a bit of chip damage.
Yeah, I think so. But you can still use it quite well at the bridge or close to the bridge to quickly tank, for example, against a mortar or an X-bow and then counter it. So,
and especially when you kind of catch your opponent with like less elixir as well, you can still becomes viable that giant.
Okay, so now we've taken care of the Royal G. Let's talk about the Elite Barbs. What are we doing with them?
Right, so they are getting a little bit of a haircut as well. So hit points are reduced by 4% and the time for the first hit is 0.1 seconds slower. So this makes them slightly easier to deal with when defended properly. So they don't remain alive when you have put like everything against them and then they still come with a sliver of health and destroy your tower. So they're still a real threat when they get through, but just slightly easier to deal with.
And it's kind of cool to do this and then we can sort of see the behavioral change and see the card usage change. And then perhaps, and then that leads us to the next set of balance changes.
Something I want to add is that when we nerf cards, we never want to kill those cards completely. So the idea here is not to kill Royal Giant and Elite Barbarians and remove them from the meta or from the game, but ideally they are a bit more tolerable to deal with and maybe their use rates also could go down a little bit.
Pekka Riding Dragon asks, if you were a card, which one would you be? He said he would be a wizard.
I'd be an elixir pump. just just chilling at the back,
just collecting,
just doing the work,
stagnant, just playing on your couch, just
pumping away,
pumping away.
Lucky Thunder asks, if there's one card you wish you could rework so it would be better, what would it be and how would you rework it? Right. But actually maybe like Sparky, I feel, is kind of in a funny place right now. I think when I was progressing through the ladder, Sparky was always quite a difficult one to deal with when I was at a lower.
It's
trophy
always
range.
scary.
It used
It's
to
like,
fill me
oh,
with so much
no.
fear.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'd be like, just good game, and like, but then I sort of started learning of ways how to counter it. And I remember, I think like Jan did a video on how to counter Sparky, and after I watched that, I was like, oh, I get it. This is cool. And I think Sparky is just an example of if you know how to counter Sparky, then it's really quite easy to defend against.
Yeah.
But if you don't know, it's like impossible.
It's the worst thing. Yeah.
The one thing with Spark is it's so swingy. Like either you get insane value or you get no value.
Exactly.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. So I don't know what we
It's like roulette.
what we could do to rework it at this point, and maybe we can in the future try and play around with a couple of things. We don't have any active plans to rework Sparky, but I think if we did start going back to mechanically changing some of our older cards, like that would probably be one of the first ones that we'd consider.
Yeah.
We actually did one rework that comes to mind now. It was the Lumberjack. When we released the Lumberjack, it was way slower than it is now. It was a medium speed unit, and it hit like roughly the same as the normal Barbarians, but it wasn't used almost at all, and it felt that it didn't really like have its own role. So we actually made a really big rework by making it very fast and hitting really fast. So that was a rework we did, but it was quite fast after it was released. So people weren't really used to it yet at that point.
Another example might be also poison. So with the giant poison meta, we reworked the poison to remove, was it the slow?
Yeah, we did. And I think even the log had a few changes. Like it felt quite underwhelming at first, but then we added that pushback and extended its reach.
And now the log used to be the worst of the legendaries.
Yeah,
right?
it was like,
People
I
used
got a
to post
log, and now people are like,
pictures-
I got a log!
Yeah, people used to post pictures going, I've got a legendary. Oh, it's a log. and now it's the opposite. Everyone's like, yeah, we got a log.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean the log when it was launched, it did have the pushback, but we then a bit later introduced that it pushes back everything.
Right.
But it didn't really I wouldn't call it a complete rework. It was really just like
An evolution.
giving it like more role, giving like it really that like unique legendary status that it has its own soul in a way.
Yeah, when it was released, it was the log, but now it's the log.
It was actually introduced as a counter or a nerf for the princess.
Yeah, that was one of the design goals with the log. Yeah.
Can I ask you guys a question?
No.
Okay.
Next question. Pyroman Kale asks, why won't you buff tournaments? They're pretty much dead? Question mark.
Yeah, I think we can sort of certainly see from the use rates of tournaments they have been on a decline.
Yeah, I think we want to revisit them at some point, and I think maybe take a different approach with them. You know, maybe you rework them entirely.
It's something that's still in the sort of discussion phase. We're sort of trying to work out what it is that we'd want to do, how we can make them work.
We just sort of talking about it. No concrete plans of how we're going to move forward with this.
But I'd definitely like to see in the sort of the next year or so that we do completely rework the tournaments into a structure that we're happy with.
Right.
So T3000P asks, can cannons fart?
No, and I think it would be seriously OP if they could. I mean, that would be totally broken. So Max Squash 55 is asking, what game engine was used to make Clash Royale? Banks, can you answer that?
Yeah, it's a good question. So we actually use an in-house engine. So it's one that we've developed, like it's a Supercell engine. It's written in C++, and all of the Supercell games share this core tech and are built off this core tech. I think the technology comes originally perhaps from Clash of Clans, or at least sort of in the early days of Supercell, and it's kind of matured over time. And we find that sometimes, like a lot of the game teams will create code and create features that are perhaps reusable, and at that point we sort of move that code into the engine so that other games can then benefit from it. An example of this would be where Clash of Clans have recently added friends feature, where you can add friends outside of the social networks, and maybe that's something that is going to come to Clash Royale soon.
Spoiler. TAW96 asks, what does Pekka officially mean to you guys? And or how did you create or come up with the name?
It's a secret. No one knows. But Pekka is a male name. Kind of like John.
A traditional Finnish name.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you say it in a Finnish way?
Pekka.
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 Great.
Pekka.
Skull310 asks, have you guys ever tried to make a legendary building? Whoa.
What would it do, Stefu?
We tried once.
Really?
We had the
Cards we killed.
Cards we killed. We once had the Ice Wizard Tower.
Ah,
cool.
yes.
But it was too defensive. It was like it just stopped everything.
Yeah. Froze everyone in place.
But yeah, the thing with buildings is that they are often quite defensive, and we don't want to like
Aggressive
have more and
gameplays.
more. Yeah, we want to like focus more on aggressive gameplay. Like Furnace and Goblin Hut, for example, are quite offensive buildings, really, and Barbarian Hut. So
we need an
Mortar,
offensive building.
explode.
What would an offensive building be?
An offensive building?
the most offensive.
Probably one that
building
shouts
ever.
out curse words.
That's Mega Expo, the Elite Expo.
Oh, yeah. Elite Expo that shoots...
Shoots curse words every 0.2 seconds.
Yes.
That would definitely be legendary.
Can I mute it?
No, unmutable because it's legendary.
Zaramon95 asks, was the opponent left the match text removed because I have made people rage quit and know that at least some of them have left the match?
Well, actually, the text was removed so that if people accidentally disconnected, people couldn't take advantage of that right away.
Yeah, I guess it's kind of nice, like, to sort of see when that does happen that you're so winning that they just go, I'm not playing anymore. But at the same time, people could take advantage of it, and it's like if you suddenly lose connection, you don't want your opponent knowing about that because they go, quick, rush.
Right.
T-Man Hall asks, is the developer team going to fix True Red and True Blue?
Yeah, so first, True Red and True Blue, it's about this slight asymmetry between the players, and yes, we have actually fixed that in the last update. There might still be some edge cases, but it should be fixed.
Yay! Cloud X writes, how does a dude take care of its calcium supplement if it can't drink a glass of milk?
So this is something we recently looked into. We had to study their behavior outside of the game. So, like, what are they doing on their downtime?
Right.
And one of the conclusions of this was that we actually found them like just chilling out in a milk bath, and they're pretty small as well. So like you don't need a lot of milk, but they just chill out there. They absorb the calcium, and then they dry themselves out in the sunshine.
Yep.
Which is really good. They're getting the calcium and they're getting their vitamin D as well. So
yeah, I mean that's how the skeletons maintain their bright white appearance.
yeah.
All right, Sip, here's a question for you.
Specifically for me?
Yes. Thang WJ is asking, why did you change the executioner's face?
Oh, here
Why
we go.
did you do it?
Well, we felt like the executioner's face, it wasn't really reflecting his personality as well as we thought it would. Also, it was sort of poorly executed. So we sort of reworked it, made him, I guess more reflective of his personality.
What is the executioner's personality?
He's kind of goofy, he's obsessed with his axe. And we just wanted to get that across.
Bennyboy9 is asking, will you add in-game friends instead of through social media, like Clash of Clans?
Absolutely. We will be adding this. We can't guarantee it's going to be in the next update, but it's definitely something that's going to come. Masad112 asks, how did you come up with the 2v2 idea?
Well, Masad, if you listen to our previous episode, you will find out.
So a question that's come up a few times is for us to explain what happened in the last update, where there were a few cards whose attack speed was affected in peculiar ways, particularly the X-Bow, Dark Goblin, and other units that had a very high attack speed.
Yeah, there were a few unexpected changes that happened. So what we had changed was the targeting AI, and then there was a logic fix in the game. So I'll start with the logic fix. So there was a bug with the timing in the game. It was a really subtle thing, and for the update we fixed it. And what we actually fixed was the scenario where 2 ice golems, if you rocket them, the rocket ends up dealing double damage. So that was the bug we fixed.
It's amazing that bug is absolutely nothing to do with the attack speed. It's cool.
So the thing is, that's what we fixed, but what happened was every single ranged unit suddenly shot slower. The change was most visible for X-Bow and Dart Goblin because they are really fast units. So what actually happened was that every ranged unit had their hit speed increased by 0.05 seconds. Doesn't sound like too much, but for the X-Bow that was 17%. So we did the fix, and unfortunately we didn't notice it until it was live. And then it was staring at us. It was really embarrassing that slipped through, but we wanted to quickly do a maintenance and address the issues. We did a few changes in that maintenance break to address some really key interactions that happened. So we did increase the projectile speed of the Princess Towers, so that the interactions, for example, against underleveled fire spirits remained as they were before. That was not an interaction that we wanted to have permanently change. We also changed the Blow Dart Goblins' hit speed and the X-Bow's hit speed so that they acted like they acted before. The funny thing is that the X-Bow had actually always been shooting faster than what their stats says. The stats say 0.3 seconds, but actually they've been firing at roughly 0.25 seconds. Obviously we didn't want to revert that bug fix because it was a bug in the game and we wanted to have it fixed. So we did these tweaks to address the changes that had happened. But any other changes that happened with this, any other hit speed changes that happened, they are now considered to be permanent minor tweaks to the game. And of course, further down the line, we might do some balance changes to some of these cards, but that's now how it is.
Right, so one thing that was pointed out was that the archers would fire at the same target. So how do we fix that?
That relates to a change we did to the targeting AI. What we tried to fix there was this situation where, for example, a Sparky is just about to shoot and the Princess Tower shoots an arrow and the Musketeer decides that, all right, the arrow is going to kill the Sparky, so I don't care. So then the Sparky actually ends up shooting before the arrow reaches it. And as a result, the Sparky gets one last shot that could have been prevented by the Musketeer. So we wanted to improve that situation. We did some parameter tweaks, but we didn't revert completely to the old system. So it should be better than it has ever been.
Yeo Manticore asks, how do you keep the game files, client, and the whole game in a very low memory requirement? He says he's actually very impressed with this.
Thank you. So I think by memory, I think what they're asking for is disk usage, so the actual size on disk. We always try and keep our games under a 100 megabytes because that's the limit for what you can download without having Wi-Fi.
Right, which is very important to us because it allows more players to have access to the game.
Yeah, if we release an update and you can't download that update, you can't play the game. So it's really important that we keep under that limit so people can always get access to that. If they've got internet on their mobile and they don't have Wi-Fi, they can still download the update.
Right. And many people use prepaid cards for internet usage, so keeping it smaller is much better.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, there's many technical solutions we've got. We've actually, one of the things we've done recently is as we've been adding more content and more units to the game, we actually started getting it really difficult to keep under that 100 meg limit. And the game now actually doesn't have all of the content as part of the initial download. And some of the high quality textures actually get downloaded in the background whilst you're playing the game, so that we're able to still add new units to the game, but not have this restriction of the 100 megabytes.
Right.
Belai Hawk 27 asks, I was wondering if Supercell would ever make the emotes interchangeable.
It's definitely something we've thought about, and hopefully it'll come soon.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Well played. Good luck.
Veyron Boss is asking, why is there no public test realm like Overwatch? Would you ever consider publicly testing balance changes and updates to guarantee they're right changes and are bug-free?
So with the Overwatch example, with their public test realm, they have their own app on PC which you use to download and play the game, and that obviously gives them a lot of advantages and makes it a lot easier for them to release a test version of their game because they sort of control that environment. For us, we would need to put out a second app on the App Store that's like the main game, Clash Royale, but then perhaps with a beta at the end of it, and the two games would be in completely different worlds, and they'd have to have different servers, and you wouldn't be able to migrate from one to the other, and then maybe the beta app becomes the main app, and then we're back into the problem again. so yeah, it's not on mobile. It's quite restrictive and quite difficult to do this currently. Trainer Tim asks, what decks do you guys use?
Okay, let me pull mine up. Here's what I got. I got a Mega Minion, Minions, Lava Hound,
Whoa.
Guards, Miner, Arrows, Archers, and Lightning.
Nice, that's cool, man.
So it's a slow push. I'm really good at double overtime, but in the beginning, it's all about the defense.
What's your trophy high?
I just got to 4,000. So it's
congratulations.
4,010.
Did you get into the last
I did.
league? Yeah, so you got your draft chest.
Yeah.
Nice. I am personally a mortar for life.
More for life.
Mortar for life.
Wow.
Yo. Yeah, I've got my mortar deck with my bowler. I've got an Inferno Dragon there just to deal with those royal giants, and a skeleton army obviously for the elite barbs, and a furnace for some chip, and my secret weapon that I always keep hidden, the rocket.
Dirty.
Yeah, just to finish them off, and like so many cry faces come from that. I love it.
Stefu?
Well, lately I've been experimenting with this funny deck with Battle Ram and the Bandit, the Miner, the Goblin Gang, Electro Wizard, Inferno Tower, Poison, and the Log.
Wow, that's quite a off meta deck as well. That's quite cool.
Yeah, it's pretty good in the tournaments in challenge mode.
Nice. What's your trophy high?
My trophy high is 4,145.
Nice.
Oh, am I the lowest out of us?
I think so.
What are you at?
I got quite high. I almost got to Masters. I got to 4,775 last season.
Crazy.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
My play style is usually that. In Clash Royale, in other similar games, I like to collect a little bit of everything. I upgrade everything very evenly and like to be able to try everything all the time.
Yeah, I really like that as well.
Experiment with decks and cards.
If you just play a mortar deck your whole life, you go slowly insane. 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 Go slowly
Right.
Yeah.
All right, so AZ03, what can we expect on the next update? Maybe give us a hint to look out for.
So something we've been experimenting with in the last week in the development build is a new 2v2 game mode. So off the back of the popularity of 2v2 and how we as a development team love it, and we're playing it loads, and then like just seeing the reaction from the community, we were like, how can we take this further? I can't give you any concrete promises or details about this yet because it's still in the works, but it's going to be awesome.
It's 2v2 draft.
Please like, comment, subscribe, YouTube 5-star, Pinterest.
Done. Let's go.
Thanks for joining us. Thank you for listening. I've been Sip.
And I've been Bangs. Who are you?
And I'm Stefu.
Yes. And we'll see you
in the
arena.
arena.
What?
Yeah.